problem with doing your core values is when you sit down, you have this list. So I print out Brené's list, right? And I'm looking at hundreds of core values here. And I'm like, but how do you say family's on there, right? How do I have a husband, I have a child, I love my family, I love my dad, my mom, blah, blah, blah. How do I not put family at the top? That feels like I'm a bad mom if I say that, right? So I don't want to leave any of them out, but we're not leaving them out. We're just saying they're not the ones that drive my behavior.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be an exciting one. Our guest is the founder of Ravel Collective, a professional community of socially conscious, purpose-driven women entrepreneurs, and she's the host of Ravel Radio podcast. Cara Steinmann, welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you. And, we were talking just a little bit about your business and what you do before we started recording. And I'm so excited about this episode, helping our bookkeepers utilize your sphere of genius that you've been discovering along the way. And so before we get into that, I'd love for you to share your career journey that has led you here.
Sure. Love to. I was in marketing for a long time, like 15 years. And as a service-based entrepreneur in marketing, I really didn't need a lot of marketing myself because I did one thing really well and I got a lot of referrals. I didn't even have a website for the first 10 years. I was doing mostly fitness content writing, which then morphed into strategy and SEO. And I worked for a couple agencies. And when that happens, you sort of have to do what they tell you to do. So I started learning Facebook ads and Google ads. And pretty soon I was doing all the things and I knew how to do all the things. And so when you work for an agency, you do all the things for whoever they want you to do them for. So you don't really get to choose your clients. You don't really get to choose what you do a lot of the time. And so when I finally went back out on my own again, I was taking on all the clients and doing all the things for all the clients. And it was really horrible. It was a literal nightmare. I did not like most of my clients. We didn't have a good experience together. And I don't think the quality of what I was putting out there was particularly fantastic anyway. And so I sort of melted down and was like, I need to figure out what is going on here. And it took a long time to figure out what was going on because, we're always so close to the situation. We can't really see what's happening sometimes, especially if we're a solopreneur or we're, working in a vacuum a lot, like on our own. But eventually what I figured out was that I had stopped doing the one thing I do really well, and I had kind of lost who I was. So I wasn't being really choosy about which clients I was working for. And so once I figured that out, I took a step back and I was like, okay, who am I? What are my strengths? What are my core values? What do I do? How do I do it in a way, like what honors the way I like to work? And then I was able to choose clients better. And I think that's kind of the crux of where I'm going with this background is that I know your audience are bookkeepers and their clients probably want to stay with them for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm,
like
absolutely.
When you give someone your financial information, you kind of there's a trust there that makes it, you don't just bounce around from bookkeeper to bookkeeper. So it was a lot easier for me to fire my marketing clients than it would be to fire a bunch of bookkeeping clients.
Absolutely.
And so I think knowing myself now better than I did before would help me if I was still doing service business. It would help me to find better clients and take them on and to network with people who would most likely know, like, and trust me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So interesting. So, and I can see that, and I know that for so many of our listeners, is they get working with clients, and even though they're in the industry they may love, like you said, you didn't like working with those clients. Maybe it's just a toxic environment, and you're so busy. Our listener is so busy doing something that every day it's just like a blur. And then, before you know it, 4 weeks have passed, and a quarter, and then a year, and it's like just grind. And the belief, the mind is so powerful that it's hard to even imagine something greater or better or different. How could it be any other way? I remember saying to one of our clients, pre-clients, they were sort of thinking about their business, and we talked about growing their business, and she said, I don't want to grow my business. I don't want to grow this awful thing that I have. And so it's like, yeah, you don't want to grow that. You want to build a business that serves you and your lifestyle and what you want to have happening in it.
Yeah, you should love it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if you're doing bookkeeping, you still have to decide, like, I think you should niche into something. Like, my bookkeeper works with agencies. So I'm actually not really in her niche, but I like her a lot. And so we work together, and so far it's going well. She had to figure a few little things out because my business model is different than what she's used to. But that just goes to show you that referrals, even though you should niche, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to work within your niche if you don't want to.
That's beautifully said, and often unsaid, is that niching is a strategic move. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to live to that. It's good to do that if you find your niche and try and stay in your lane. But if you love the people and you can do the work, certainly. Now, before we skip over that was something we chatted very briefly about, and I'm curious about. Your bookkeeper, you actually found your bookkeeper on the community that you found it. Tell us the story about that before. Like, what had you look for a bookkeeper? What was going on in your life and your business? And then tell us the story of how you found your current bookkeeper.
So I didn't have a bookkeeper before. I had been putting it off. And I had Ravel Collective. It was a community that I founded because I wanted to see if I could scale this referral relationship that I had for a long time, where I was just really close with this person. We liked each other. She's like my biz bestie. And we had, it was more than just a referral relationship. We'd text each other. We'd complain about clients. We'd, share our wins. And as a solopreneur, it's kind of lonely sometimes. So it's nice to have that connection. But we happened to be in a strategic position to refer one another often. So that kept us in this like business sphere together. And so I was like, man, I wonder if that would scale, because I think a lot of us are lonely. And I was meeting this was during COVID, and I was meeting all these really cool women online. And because all of a sudden everybody was like willing to hop on a Zoom call because you couldn't get together in person. And so the landscape changed a little bit, and it got a lot easier to network with people online in a really casual way, which is kind of how I prefer to do it anyway. And so I started meeting all these women, and I was like, I can't keep track of them. And it was taking all this time. I always want to introduce people. That's kind of compulsive for me. And so I was like, oh, you got to meet so-and-so, and you got to meet so-and-so. And it took a lot of time. So I just put them all in a container together, which is essentially all social is too. Like LinkedIn's a container, Facebook's a container. They just have an algorithm and somebody has an agenda. So I created a circle community and put all my friends in there, all my new biz besties, and we all just started connecting. And because I was networking sort of strategically, we were all service entrepreneurs, and we all were in a position to refer one another. So I heard my bookkeeper is Abby from Terrain Bookkeeping. She's awesome. And I heard her on a podcast, and then I reached out because she seemed really cool. And so I just reached out and said hi. And then we got to talking, and I asked if she wanted to join us in Ravel, and she joined. And I think it was like 6 months later, maybe, I hired her. But I wasn't looking to hire her in the beginning. She, I watched her in the community and how she worked and what kind of person she is, and decided to hire her because of who she is. And
beautiful.
Obviously she has a good reputation because now I've referred several people to her and I hear good feedback. So I don't know. I think it's about knowing people as a person.
Know, like, and trust. Right? You're basically creating have created a digital space where people can organically know, like, and trust people. And there's other situations, BNI and, like you say, Facebook. But the difference here I can see is that it's very organic. And you've just created the container and the digital functionality that functions. And then you're bringing people like and trust into the community and letting it organically grow. And I love the story. You found your bookkeeper there, not with that intent, but hey, I like this person. I think they'd be great in my community. And then all of a sudden, wow, I need your service. Yeah.
And we don't come into the community thinking we're going to hire each other. The the whole idea, and I think a lot of people miss this, which is unfortunate because it's kind of like a nugget here. It's not the 150 women in Ravel that are going to buy your business. It's potentially the 150 people that each of those people knows. And
That's
what
right.
happens more often than not is somebody will come into the community and they'll say, hey, a friend of mine's looking for such and such. Do any of you guys do this? Do you know someone who does this? And that ties into kind of like the way that I built Ravel, which was very intentionally built around core values. My biz bestie, who referred me for years, she attributes 80% of her revenue over the past 10 years to referrals that I sent to her, because I know her really well. I know what she does really well, and I know how she operates, which goes to your core values and your temperament and how you operate. And that's really tough to hide long term. So if you can just own it and work in your strengths with your core values, you'll attract people who are also in that realm. So when I put Ravel together, I wrote the copy on the site so that it was very obvious what my core values are. And I wanted to attract and invite women who shared at least one of my core values, because birds of a feather flock together. And then if they refer someone to the community, they would probably share some of our core values, and we would all be, so it's not salesy in there. It's very connection oriented. It's relational rather than transactional. And the people that, if you slip through once in a while, maybe that aren't quite a great fit, and they just sort of opt out because they're not getting a response to the salesy pitches. We just don't respond. It just doesn't work. So it's really been really organic and has felt really good.
That's great. I can see how that would work really, really well, and it's rare that it's done that way. And that it's if we think of the way ideally business would work is that someone, I know someone, we say we're at the end of our driveway talking to our neighbor, and they're like, I need to do a kitchen reno. It's like, you know what? I've done a kitchen reno. Person was awesome. Loved having them over, would have them over for dinner, would trust them with my kid, would, hand them my wallet to go pick, fill up the tank of gas in my car. That's the type of person I would want to hire. And so that's hard to, that's like out in the community. There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen. I don't have 60 driveways, right, with 60 neighbors. So it's like very minimal micro, but if you can find a way to expand that, which you've done, it's like, I really like this person, and that person has all the values I have, and they invite someone who's got all the values that I have. Eventually you create this mass of people that have this culture that really does. And of course, yes, it gets to a point where it self-manages, the community self-manages, which is brilliant.
That's kind of an interesting point too, because I don't do much. I don't post all the time. I don't try to keep everybody entertained. I host a couple of calls a month. We have a small group mastermind, and we have a connection call. And then once a month, we have a happy hour. So I guess it's 3 calls a month. But they're all really casual. And if I don't show up, like, my aunt was ill recently, and I couldn't show up to some of these calls. And I just put a message in the group and said, hey, you guys, can somebody handle this? And they were all like, hey, you take all the time you need. This is not as important as what you're doing right now. It's like I have 150 friends that I can reach out to for moral support. It's pretty incredible. And what's kind of interesting is that we have a lot of the same type of business in there. We have a lot of marketers. I think Abby might be, no, we've got a few bookkeepers and accountants and some financial professionals in there too. But I don't believe in competition. And because everybody in there is really self-aware, they're able to see where their business is different, where they operate different, where there's some difference in the type of client that they enjoy working with. So they can collaborate. I mean, the first thing I do when I find somebody who does something similar to me is I want to know how we're different, because that means you can refer me when it's not a great fit for you, and I can refer you when it's not a great fit for me.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that runs rampant in communities that of bookkeepers is there's obviously some that really feel like, there's, other bookkeepers, so I can't actually, go in there. But everyone's different. Everyone has different likes of clients, have different expertise. And so it's finding that out. And then you build people that you know, like, and trust that you can refer that aren't fits for yourself. So really sounds like a fantastic community that you've built. It's called Ravel Collective. And of course, we'll have links and we'll talk about where people can get there. But the other question I had is, when you were switching and growing your business, you talked about networking and building this. I'd love to know, because there are some that would say, oh, it's hard to network, or I don't feel comfortable doing it. What is it that makes some people believe that networking is difficult?
I think a lot of it is the stigma around like not wanting to be salesy, around thinking it's a numbers game, like it's going to wear you out, that you have to do it all the time, like that you have to set a reminder in your CRM and connect with 10 people a day. And that just sounds very transactional, like back to the relational transactional thing.
Yes.
I think it should be a quality over quantity situation. And we can have a few really great referral partners as long as they're strategic. And I talk about this. I have a non-ick LinkedIn networking playbook that I sell. It's a digital product. And it gives you the formula. It says, here's how you find the right people, because you can have complementary service providers or shoulder niche peers, so complementary service providers would be, if you are a bookkeeper for agencies, maybe you want to network with coaches for agencies because you both serve the same person, but you don't do the same thing. And then your shoulder niche peers would be your other bookkeepers who maybe serve a different client, or maybe other financial professionals that serve the same client, but in a different way. Fractional CFOs versus accountants versus bookkeepers and that kind of thing, CPAs. So there's all these people that your ideal client need in their business. And if you can find all the other ones, it's really easy to kind of get together and say, hey, let's be biz besties. Let's support one another in business. So I think it's a lot of misconceptions around what networking really is versus what people think it is.
Yeah, I would agree. And such a huge opportunity when you do it right. We were talking just a few days ago about marketing. And marketing has not changed for forever. As a small business, there's all these other ways you can do it, but the core of what you do is really the same, and they're really inexpensive. And if you do them right, they're really effective. And so networking is one of those key pieces. So the program that you talked about, was it called Nick? I didn't catch the name. Non-ick. Okay, non-ick, like non-icky. Okay,
not
I love
icky.
that. I love that. So that's a guide that will basically a blueprint that they can use to map this out, which I love. So we can have links for that in the show notes. And so it's like getting it done correctly and having it work is very, very powerful. And I remember Ivan Meisner has been on the show several times and created a very large, very different than what you've created, but very large networking organization of groups, right? But those groups are very, they're built. A BNI, he was the founder of BNI, Business Networking International. And it was, it's like one bookkeeper, one accountant, one financial planner, that sort of business. But one of the things, he was at a conference, and there was like 1,000 people there. He said, okay, I want everyone to raise their hands if you came here looking to meet someone that you could sell to. And, a lot of people put up their hand, pretty much the whole room, right? And then for those that came here looking to buy from someone, put up your hand. Nobody, right? So it's this concept that, I'm going to go to a networking event because I want to sell my stuff, is the wrong mindset. It's just, you want to just meet people because you don't know. It's like you said, those people, the people you'll do business, is not likely the person that you're going to meet today. The person you're going to do business with is like the person that they know, or even the person that they know that knows somebody else. And that's where every opportunity to meet someone is literally, you're working on your marketing. If you go to the grocery store and you talk to the person at the till, or you talk to the owner of the grocery store, you're networking. You are building relationships with people that can find out and refer you somewhere else. And if you don't meet them, if you don't talk to them, guess what? No opportunity.
Yeah, the whole point is that you're hoping that person you meet, whoever that is going to talk about you behind your back and say something good.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't expect, I'm really disappointed if somebody ever comes into Ravel and tries to sell, because that's not the point. We are all, the thing is when you like somebody and they do good work, you're going to refer them. I want my friends to win. There's this, I want everybody that I like to win, for their business to succeed and for them to enjoy it and have an enjoyable work experience and just kill it. And so if I happened to come across somebody who needs their services, of course I'm going to tell them about it. I'm going to rave. And that's kind of priceless these days when somebody's raving about you. Because how long does it take to build trust with a blog? And I'm not saying blogging is not valuable, because it is. All the marketing tactics are valuable in some way. But the trust that gets transferred when I say look at her as opposed to, or him as opposed to look at me, it's exponential. The close rate, like I said, 80% of my friends' revenue over the past 10 years, because when someone says, hey, do you know somebody who does this? And I happen to know that she does that really well, I can say, hands down, best person you're going to find. Don't even bother looking anywhere else. And I can mean it. So your reputation's important too, right? You have to have integrity around it.
Absolutely. Worst thing you can do is not be great at what you're doing. And it's like, oh, I referred Michael, and then Michael goes ahead and does a terrible job. Boom. It's you look bad because you referred Michael. And it's another Michael. It's real bad. Not me. Right. And now you look bad. Everybody looks bad. And I've had that situation happen to me where it's, I've referred people and they didn't do a good job, and it caused a lot of collateral damage. And so I know that's going to happen. And unfortunately too, I'll say it's not the ones where it's actually more damaging and more often has happened, is that the person I referred is great. I know they're great, but I referred them to a bad customer, right? It's like someone that has unreal expectations. Yeah. Actually, I have it in my mind, I know exactly. It was like, anyways, I won't get into it because it's too connected to
that
people
happens,
that
though,
might
and
listen to this. But yeah, they were the problem. The customer was the problem, not the person I referred.
Right. And the thing is that the customer might not even, he's probably not even a terrible person. They're probably, a lot of, I think
they're great people.
A lot
love
of
these
conflict.
People. All the people involved there, I loved. It's just, there was a perfect storm sometimes that happens when people have higher expectation, or if there's maybe a lack of communication or a breakdown, it can cause a terrible outcome. Now, you could go like 10 times and not have those collide at the same time, but if you get it and it's like, boom, it goes sideways quickly. And that's really what this one came down to, was a lack of communication, that it's like, undefined expectations, which need to have communication. Boom, problem.
And sometimes that happens, life happens, it gets in the way. Sometimes we're not on top of our game, and we just happen to be in a place where maybe as a client, we're in a bad place, or as a bookkeeper, we're in a bad place, and that happens. But I've seen more often than not, it's just a temperament mismatch.
Yes.
When towards the end of my work as a service entrepreneur, I stopped taking on clients who had a really highly conscientious temperament, which you can tell because they're really organized. They want to know what's happening 10 steps down the road. They want you to stick to the plan. I am very low. And I say low conscientiousness, I mean like the ocean temperament test.
Right. What's the ocean temperament test?
It stands for, it's a psychology test that tests your temperament. It's like parts of your personality. And there's some correlation to core values there. Ocean stands for openness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, OCEAN. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Well, it's been a while since I thought about that.
Wow, you banged that out. Those are big words.
Those are
Even
five
in
aspects
an acronym, and big words,
I'm like, So that's one of the temperament tests, the personality tests that psychologists like to study and use because it's really consistent.
Okay,
And the conscientiousness measures, how detail-oriented are you? Do you follow through on what you say you're going to do? Are you organized? Are you structured? Do you enjoy structure and routine? Whereas openness is more, and those are kind of at odds with one another. Openness is, do you like to let things sort of happen? Are you okay with changing the plan? Right. And I'm really high in openness and extroversion. So naturally, my conscientiousness would be lower. So taking on clients that need a plan and need structure is a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And you can tell by people's language what they're like. Like if you have an onboarding or say an application to work with somebody and you ask a certain types of questions, you can figure out what somebody's temperament is pretty easily. And then you can decide, is this somebody who's going to appreciate the style, the way I work? Or are they going to be annoyed because I'm not giving them a bulleted list of things that's going to happen, right down to the nitty gritty?
Wow. I love that. That's let's add that to, we're talking about networking today. We're talking about, but this is kind of interesting around the ideal client, right?
Yeah.
Put that layer. Often when we're talking about ideal client, it's like, firmographics, this many clients, this many, type of business, but like, and we do talk a little bit about character, but even starting to map to something like, what's that whole concept of like, are they open? Am I open? Do I like open? Do I like a plan? If I like a plan, I'm going to probably like people that like plans. And so it's really going a little deeper in that, because if you think about, you could be doing great work, and if you're working with someone that's on a different spectrum on that ocean, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to enjoy it, or they're not going to enjoy it, and you're going to feel like you're not delivering, and they're going to feel like something, and it's not going to work great. But if you are on that same plane, it's like, you're going to work in your sphere of genius, but you're also going to feel free around how you're behaving and how you think.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with bookkeepers too, especially, you're dealing with people's money. And when I first hooked up with my bookkeeper, the reason I put it off for so long is because they were a mess. I'm not high in conscientiousness. I don't like numbers. I like people. I like ideas. And I don't want to sit and do the numbers thing. So my books were a mess. And I was embarrassed by that. And I have money mindset issues that I am dealing with, all that, like we all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the reasons I chose Abby was because she's very sensitive. And I thought she was a good fit for my temperament, because I need a gentle hand. I need someone to be very kind and gentle with me when it comes to my money, and not judge me and not be very black and white. And I needed somebody like that. I just knew I needed that. And so somebody who had a different temperament, who was very, rigid and black and white, would have maybe not been a very good experience for me personally, but maybe would have been a great experience for somebody else.
I love that. That. So interesting. And this is another key piece here, that Abby did a good job of showing that she was that person.
Yeah, I knew her well enough by the time I hired her. We'd had several calls, we'd had a ton of calls together. And you can just tell what kind of person somebody is, and also she explains on her website who she is. When she had Samantha Burmeister, who's a great copywriter, she had her do her new website copy, and she posted it on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, check out the great job Samantha did," which is awesome to do, by the way. If somebody does a great job, let everybody know. And so I checked out her website, and I knew her by this time, and I was like, yes, this explains exactly who you are. So it's really easy to turn away the clients you you don't want with the copy on your website. Let yourself show through, let your personality show through, because that's who people are working with.
Yes, I agree. And that's, you meet someone and then they go back to their desk and they look at your website. You want to map to your ideal client. So it's like that extra additional thought that's going in. I want to attract these people. And what do those people need? What are they trying to attract? Who do they want to work with? And making sure that they are landing at a place that's going to really display and show that you're that person for them, just like Abby did for you. It's so powerful and really really important. It all connects, right? You go out networking, meet great people, and they help you find people that are going to work great with you.
Yeah. And I think that's really one of those misconceptions back to like why people don't want to do networking, because it feels like a never ending job. It's an extra job on top of your marketing you have to do for your job, for your work, right? But I don't think I know it doesn't have to be that way, because you can find a handful of really strategic partners who understand you and know you really well. And yeah, maybe you'll have to add or subtract from that here and there. But if you're networking with the right people, they're going to send you the right clients because they know you and they like you. And over time, that trust builds to the point where they can say, hands down, go see, Michael.
Yes, yes. And everyone's different. I mean, when it comes to who they want to meet and like and connect with, and but if you don't get out there and meet people, you're not meeting anyone. And you don't have to go meet people you don't like either. You can just meet. It's like you already got a network. Nurture that network if that's the case. One of the things that I learned early on, and I forget where it came from, but it was a book that I had read, and I always enjoy. I love telling people about a good movie I've seen, a restaurant that I like, a vacuum that works well for me. I love these things, right? It's like, for me, it's like, I found the perfect vacuum, or I found this restaurant. I've been there 10 times and it's amazing. Now I know that I've learned over the years that what I think is amazing isn't what everybody else thinks is amazing.
True.
But so I do more and more as I wisen up with my age, is I ask people, well, what are you really looking for, right? Because I might like a restaurant where they want quiet, I want noisy, or I want quiet, they want noisy. I'm like, what are you really looking for? And I can refer you something that I really like and love, but I make a point of making sure that I refer. If I hear somebody that's talking about selling their house or buying a house, I'm like, you don't want to work with anybody else but my realtor. And I've worked with her for 20 years. She is lovely. She's a beautiful person. Her whole team's like her. You do not want to deviate from using her. Now, some people will, some people won't, but I've referred, like you said, like she can attribute quite a large chunk of referrals, and it gives me great joy to do it. Yeah. And I know that they're going to be taken care of. I know they're going to have this awesome experience and say, yeah, Michael, I love where she did this, she did that, or the restaurant. I went to the restaurant. That was so great. And so I don't think about what's coming back to me. I'm thinking about, I just get joy from sharing things that I love. And a lot of people are like that. And so lean into that. If you're someone like that, lean into that and try and figure out who you really like and why you like them, and talk to people and refer. Is that easy?
And I think I'm the same way you are. And I realized it's a dopamine hit that I get when I solve the problem for somebody. Like, it feels really good to solve that problem. I'm like, I know who you need to talk to. I got the answer for you. Let's do this. It
is a dopamine hit. Yes.
And once I figured that out, I was like, that's why it's compulsive for me. And if you're curious enough and you're interested in people, eventually they're going to talk about some problem they have. And if you have a solution, offer it up. And that sort of starts that chain of reciprocity, which is really cool and this is why I don't like referral fees. Like, I don't like when someone pays referral. I turn them down, and I don't think they're a good idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The referral fee thing, well, that would conflict with your values, right?
Yeah, it does. It does like three things that I don't like. It closes the circle of reciprocity. So they feel like, okay, this person has been paid for the referral they sent me. They got what they needed back. Don't have to think about that anymore. If you don't pay a referral fee, it's sort of in the back of their mind that like, wow, that person did something really nice for me. And it's not manipulative. It's just a way our brain works. We want to make things even. And so we're kind of in the back of our minds. It helps keep you top of mind is all it does, right?
That's right.
And then the other thing it does is it can muddy the relationship if the person you referred, if the client finds out. Like, did you it just really, puts that question mark in your mind. Was this really the best for me?
That's
the best referral for me? Or was it because they were getting something out of it?
That's right.
And then there's also the third thing is this little weird thing that can happen sometimes when people's idea of reciprocity, the value of the reciprocity doesn't match. Like I heard a podcast where this lady was talking about how she sent this guy. I wish I could find it because I was just like, I stopped in my tracks. I was walking my dog. I was like, oh, that's a nightmare. That's terrible. She referred this guy to a couple of clients, and it ended up in like millions of dollars of revenue for this guy. And he sent her like a $20 gift card to Starbucks or something as a thank you.
Right.
And she was like, really?
It minimizes,
the thank you, the amount of the thank you was just nowhere near the...
That's right. Whereas if there was no referral fee, it wouldn't have been calculated. It would have been, well, good for you. You made $1 million and I was happy to do it. But the minute it's like, well, here's $20, you've soured and soiled and disrespected the...
And it turns transactional.
Yes, that's right.
Instead of relational.
Yeah.
You have to keep it relational, I think.
That's right. You really do. Otherwise, if it's going to be like the fellow with $1 million is like, it's got to map back. Either you do it right or you don't do it at all. And that's for everyone's different. Some people really, this is their thing. They can make it all work. I know people like that. They have no problem. If it's a problem for me, it's a problem for everyone if it's a problem for me. And if it's not a problem for me, it's not a problem for anyone because we're generating it, right? So it's like knowing yourself and knowing how you want to be. If you want to build the referral fee and you're good at that and you can make it all work, go for it. But for many, and in small business, it's like we get paid in different currency when it comes to referring people and sharing. And, it's like, give me $200. Will I have as much fun as with $200 as feeling great that I helped somebody have an amazing experience with working with a great realtor or going for a lovely special dinner where they celebrated their anniversary? Money can't buy that.
Yeah.
So, it would soil it. I wouldn't want to do it. And I'm one of those people as well. I don't want to be paid for it. I want to refer things I like. And I've tried it before. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a good example. It's like I use this Athletic Greens, right? And they give you a free month or something or something that's whatever. I'm on a subscription. It sends every month, but they're giving you something. And I did that. I was like, well, why not? I love the product. I referred it. And it was like, it just didn't feel right. And I felt like I had to explain, like, look, I'm referring this because I love it, but I'm going to get a free bag of this green stuff. I just want you to know I'm not doing it to get the free bag. In fact, I wouldn't even want the bag, right? But it was weird. So I've just stopped all of that.
Yeah. And it's a little messy in there too. And even I don't mind affiliates. Affiliates feel different to me. Like I have affiliates for the non-ick LinkedIn networking playbook because it's a digital product. I've already put the work in. And if somebody's selling it for me, that feels like an arrangement that makes sense to me. So it's not black and white. And some people do the referral fee thing and they are very comfortable with it. And this goes back to the temperament thing. If you're somebody who likes rigid lines and black and white, and you don't like letting the reciprocity float out there until it comes back to you, then maybe you do referral fees. There's not one way to do it, right? But you have to figure out what makes sense to you and network with people who it also makes sense to.
That's right. Absolutely. I love that. So some really cool things there. We talked a little bit about values, and I would love for you to talk about the role that core values play in networking and creating meaningful relationships. Like, how does someone figure that out? You've done that. You built your whole Ravel Collective around values, but how did you come to do that, and what can you recommend for our listener?
Oh, man, I love talking about core values because when it finally sunk in for me, it just blew my mind. It was when I was trying to pivot my business away from marketing, and I was trying to figure out like, well, what am I good at and what do I do? And why is this so hard for me to even imagine a different kind of career or a different kind of life? I knew I had to do something, but I couldn't even and I knew it was about self-limiting beliefs. I knew there was some subconscious stuff there preventing me from really seeing what I should be doing with my life. And so I was super focused on that. And then I started listening to Brene Brown's book. It was Dare to Lead had just come out, and I was listening to it, and it was raining, and I was walking my dog. And I remember she said, part of the book, she starts talking about how you're in the arena, which for me is entrepreneurship. I'm in the arena, and you're on your knees and you're bloody. And the only thing that keeps you in that arena are your values. because it's not fun sometimes. It can be difficult, and you're going to run into problems and obstacles. And what keeps you going the direction you're going is your core values. And I stopped. I remember I stood in the rain for like 10 minutes just going, oh my goodness. I don't think the beliefs matter as much as the values in this scenario, because the beliefs, sure, they're stopping me from moving forward in some way, but I don't even know which direction I'm supposed to go unless I have my values dialed in, unless I know. And I had always put off doing my core values. Everybody says, it's such a cliche, like your core values, right? But what they are is drivers. They drive your behavior. They are so ingrained in you, and you can change your beliefs, and you can change your probably even adjust your temperament in some ways. But like your values, they're really going to stay pretty much the same, I think, over the course of your life.
That's right. It's one of those fixed things that many people don't even think about. I remember hearing that about core values and learning about core values. And it's like, your political thoughts, your even your morals, right, will change. It's the core value is so deeply ingrained and imprinted at this young age that they just never change.
Yeah. And there are, there's a cluster of them. And so when the problem with doing your core values is when you sit down, you have this list. So I print out Brené's list, right? And I'm looking at hundreds of core values here. And I'm like, but how do you say family's on there, right? How do I have a husband, I have a child. I love my family. I love my dad, my mom, blah, blah, blah. How do I not put family at the top? That feels like I'm a bad mom if I say that, right? So I don't want to leave any of them out, but we're not leaving them out. We're just saying they're not the ones that drive my behavior. So what I discovered was I ended up eliminating all the ones that I know are not like power, money. I know I'm not motivated by those things, right? And so then what's left over? And then you kind of cluster all of them under some pillars. So I ended up with like 3 core values: freedom, connection, and authenticity. And the rest of them I clustered underneath those, like which one goes with which. And so what happens is, depending on what's going on in your life, some of those rise to the top and the other ones fall behind. Like if I had to go get a job right now and show up 9 to 5, freedom would be rising to the top, because that would be offending my core value of freedom. I would not be free. And so that value would become very important to me right away. Connection, probably not so much, because I'd be connecting with more people than I'd like to on a daily basis.
So interesting. I love the conversation of core values. I don't think we've talked much about it on the podcast. And I remember doing lots of work around core values, and that was that piece where we were learning how fixed they are, how critical they are in driving our behaviors, right? It's a key factor in our success in anything. And one of the cool exercises that we did was even using the example of family. It's like, okay, now imagine, so the exercise was, you get it down to a shorter list, and then you do like the test on it. Okay, if I have family, what does that give me? And it's like, okay, and if you had that, what does that give me? And then it's kind of, it layers the layers of the onion, if you will, that you keep pulling the onion until you hit the one where it's like, there's nothing more that it gives me, because that is it. Because family could be it resonates, it's there, and that's your core value. Or freedom, it might hit, but it's like, if I had the freedom, what does it give me? If I had the freedom. So an exercise that our listener can do is well, number one, I think the book, Brené Brown's book that you've mentioned would be, if anybody's that's been thinking about this, read the book. Sounds like there's a great exercise in there to do that. But then use that exercise. Yeah.
So another great book is The Values Factor, Dr. DeMartini.
Okay.
I think is how you pronounce it, John DeMartini. That's a great book too. I listened to that one on Audible around that same time, and it's a thick one, but I can't remember anything specific that blew my mind, like that one moment when Brené talked about being bloody on your knees, but it's another really, really good one. Another exercise I did that was really helpful at that time was I made a list of all the jobs I've ever had and all the experiences I've ever had, and whether they were positive or negative, and what was at play there. When I left that one agency and I was so miserable and I was about to lose my marbles, what was going wrong there, and what value would that have been offending? Yeah. Like a lot of it, authenticity is really important to me, and like I've defined that differently than some people define it. I define it as like the 3 pillars that hold up authenticity for me are integrity, vulnerability, and what's the other one? I can't remember the other one right now, but somebody else might define that differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I was doing a job that was really not well suited for me and I had to get all dressed up and fancy every day, which is not how I operate, I was acting like somebody I'm not every single day. And that really was difficult for me. I burned out in about 18 months and I just melted down and quit because I could not show up to that job authentic to who I am. Looking back on how you have operated in the past and why can be really helpful in figuring that out too.
Absolutely. And I love that you looked at what was happening there, deconstructing it, and then reverse engineering. You could go back with those experiences to say, what would I put, if I had something, how could I have made that job work for me? What would have had needed to be there that would have made that? And that'll be another view and slice of what those values might have been to put in there. Or if I had the ability to have more freedom or have more control of decision making, it's getting clear. And when you get clear on those core values, it's so fundamental. It's so unaltering to you. It's like the hard drive. It's like the core blueprint of you as a human being. I mean, it's such a critical piece to be aware of that's driving you. And it keeps you from getting into, no exit streets where it's like, ugh, I'm stuck in the street. I can't get out. Yeah. Well, you went down the street because you didn't know your blueprint, right? And so I think it's really valuable for our listener to take those things on. So some great books and it's fantastic. Now, how do they take those core values now and then put it into their networking?
So I think it's about finding people who share your core values. I look for people who share my connection core value. Freedom in the networking arena, for me, like freedom, that aspect doesn't matter as much because I don't really care how someone else operates their business. Like if they need freedom on a daily day-to-day, like I schedule my business. I designed it so it operates in a way that lets me have as much freedom as I can have, like day to day. Somebody else, that doesn't matter so much to me. But connection, if they don't care about connection in the same way that I do, if they're more transactional and less relational, we're not going to mold, we're not going to bend. And you can look for people who you have things in common with. Like if you love freedom, maybe you like to travel. So if I find somebody who's interesting and they love to travel and I think that they might be somebody good to network with, that's something we have in common right away that I can call on to jumpstart that bond. I can say, hey, I saw on your website you love to travel. So do I. We should connect. We might have, we might be able to work together or network together.
And when you were creating the values for your group, did you post those values? Are they on your website? How do you communicate those to other people?
I think the words that I used were, I talked about authenticity, about building relationships instead of, I forget how I phrased it, but if you look at the website, even now, I've had a copywriter, a professional come in and do a better job than I did. But the words that we talk about, being yourself and finding someone to lean on and, I think just talking about things you care about on your websites, using words like connection and use the words like.
Yeah, this is where, we're our listener is a bookkeeper. You may have a unique skill of copywriting, but you probably don't. And so hire one that can help you bring this out in your website because, the website, some people are always, I need to search engine optimize my website. And I always say to them, wait a second. One of the key things that as a small business, people are going to go and validate what they just met. So if you give them a business card or you connect with them on LinkedIn and they're about to meet you or consider dealing with you, they're going to go to that website to validate what they believe you to be, and also check up and fuel the knowledge and information that they need in order to know, like, and trust. So the website really needs to be a landing place that reinforces who you are, that you're putting out to the world, provides more and deeper, perhaps, or reinforces and strengthens the ability for them to know, like, and trust you. And I think that's where this work that do the work on the values, get a copywriter to help bring that to life, to show who you are, what you stand for, who would be really great to work with, so you can repel those that you don't want and attract those that you do.
Yeah. So like if your ideal client, if you're somebody who cares about conscientiousness and you value success and, I don't know, profit, if those things are really important to you, maybe you highlight that that's the value that they get when they work with you. But if you're somebody who values freedom and travel and those kinds of things, highlight that your ideal client, having a bookkeeper, will free them up to do these other things so they don't have to think about the numbers and those things. Like thinking about who your ideal client is and how you relate to your ideal, because your ideal client's going to share your core values. It's related to temperament. They're probably your best ones are going to share some of your core values. So your about page is really important. Let yourself be seen, I think. If you have a family, put a picture of you and your family up there. If you're a dog person, dog people love dog people. I would hire somebody just because they love dogs.
This is one thing that if we could have one action out of this podcast, if you just created your about page and improved your about page to really bring out who you are, you're going to get more clients that fit you because you've revealed who you are. And the people that are really into dogs or cats, that's a major thing. If you love dogs and they love dogs, I mean, we are meeting on some really, that could be all that we need.
Yeah.
Right? Is that shared connection, shared love or passion, right? Or if cooking, such a beautiful thing to do. And again, those things sometimes, how do you do that? Well, there's people that are really great at it. I mean, we had recently a person on our podcast. That's what she does. She's a copywriter and helps people bring to life their thoughts and whatnot into compelling, powerful language that resonates with people and clearly communicates what you want to communicate. So another opportunity, and specifically right there, the about page. I mean, we're talking about networking.
Yeah.
What you do, but really it's the about page is the know, like, and trust piece. Because you're a bookkeeper or you have some specialty in bookkeeping or accounting, whatever the case may be. But it's like, who are you as a person or as a business or a person in that business? That's what we need to really bring to the forefront.
Yeah. What's happening is you're talking to somebody and they're saying, oh yeah, you should check out so-and-so. You need a bookkeeper. Check out Michael. And they're going to go to your website and they're going to go straight to the about page. Maybe they'll look at services, but they're going to go to the about page and see what you're all about. Is this a person that I'm going to enjoy interacting with? Are they going to share the same kind of like desire to achieve the same kind of thing that I want to achieve? It's called homophily. We're attracted to people who have the same things or like the same things or are similar to us. And I'll share a trick. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and when I hear somebody reveal something interesting about themselves, and they're somebody I would like to maybe connect with, and I look for things that I share. One day I was listening to a podcast and this woman said that her mom had been married 4 times. She'd been married to her husband for 18 years. And it was she hated pickles, or it wasn't pickles, but it was something like she hated a food she hated. I had all 3 of those things in common with her. So I messaged her on LinkedIn and I said, oh my God, I just heard you on this podcast. My mom's been married 4 times. I've been married for 18 years and I hate pickles too. We got to connect. This is too much.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
she and I connected and we're friends. She's great.
Yeah. Wow.
Like it can be that easy.
And what was that word? It's called?
Homophily.
Homophily.
We're
Wow.
attracted to things that are similar to us.
Billions of years or millions of years of DNA wiring.
Yeah. They feel
that's
safe.
Deep down inside of us. We feel safe with those we know. And that enables us to like them, to trust them. And that's where that's where it begins, the beginning of it. So powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, for bookkeepers, especially people, if you're dealing with people's money, they want to feel safe.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
let them see you, let them know you.
It's such an unleveraged piece, right, in small business, is that many people don't think about it, don't think that it's because it's important, but it's definitely not urgent to do something like this, to do this work. But yet we just explained the power of it. I mean, we're like moving mountains with this power in terms of the human condition and having people decide yes to us. By doing this, it will literally leave you with better clients that you like working with, and it will provide more of them when they can decide. Because there are the people that, and I've gotten to many of those websites where it's just a flat website with no info. It's like what you do, services offered, who are the people, what do they look like, there's nothing there. It's so impersonal, such a missed opportunity. No, not even a picture of the person that does the work. Some what do they call that, stock photo of someone smiling, which sure, you have that on your webpage. When I go to the about page, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for your team. I'm looking for your, tell me more, give me more. I need to know, is this going to go well for me if I'm going to start working with this organization?
Yeah. Can I trust you?
Can I
You're a
trust
person.
you?
I know it's business, but we're people. And I would say if you're going to invest in copywriting and marketing and all that stuff, prioritize the copywriting over the SEO, especially if you're getting started. Because if you're not a copywriter, and like, we can't do it all, right? I'm not a particularly fantastic copywriter. I hire copywriters now. I used to try to do it myself, which is fine. But if you're a bookkeeper, hire a copywriter.
Yes. Amen to that.
And spend time blogging after you've developed a network and you've got a full roster and you want to just build thought leadership or whatever it is. But like the networking, it's so much, the ROI is so huge when you have a service-based business and you have long-term clients like that on retainer.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the another key nugget here is what you've said. SEO is about having people that you don't know find you. Okay, great. I love the idea.
Great.
However, the what is it? Span of control, the control that you have over that is so far. You can't control that someone's going Google. You can't control Google or Bing or whoever else to have them. You have to play in a sphere that's going to have them find you. So you have no control over that. What you do have control over is finding and meeting people and sending your own traffic to your website. And so you're absolutely, in my opinion, bang on. If you're going to do some copywriting, just do the about page, maybe your homepage that gets them over to that about page, because you're going to meet someone at the bank or you're going to meet someone at the club or the sports organization. They're going to, oh yeah, I do, it's like great to meet you. Go to your LinkedIn page, right? That about page lives at your LinkedIn page. Your control of getting people there is in your control. You can do that every day. You could do one thing that would get people to potentially get to your website. And then naturally later on, those are like advanced moves with the SEO. I can't tell you how many people do things like, I've heard horror stories of people going and getting paid advertising, sending them to a terrible website. Oh, it didn't work. No, this is so valuable for people. Get your core values figured out. Get a copywriter to bring that to life on your about page. This is going to convert to something that you're going to like. Yeah.
And then just start making friends strategically. It's about, I would go have a cup of coffee with anyone in Ravel and happily, and I would hop on a call any time of the day with all. I love them. They're all fantastic. I think we're making friends who happen to be in a strategic position to refer us. It's just, I'm going to Mexico with 5 of them in November. 3 of them I haven't even met in person, but the relationships are that valuable and that important. It's just, it can be as easy as just making friends.
I love that. So go make these friends. And then you said as well, then do the blog when you have those people
later.
And later, and then you know who to write to.
Yeah.
Because you're writing to this new found network of people that like you and you like them, and these are fantastic. And of course,
and sometimes, especially when you're starting out, you don't know who your ideal client is yet. And there are subsets of ideal clients that may be better than others. So it really makes sense to spend that energy later when you know exactly who you're talking to. Beautifully said.
There's been so much great thinking around this whole topic. And I want to just sort of ask this one last one is, where, in your opinion, of course, we're going to talk about Ravel, but where can our listener network successfully, and what should they look for when they're going to those groups and associations?
I think LinkedIn is great for networking. It's mostly because it's so easy to connect with people directly. the messaging. If you do it right, it's super easy to get connected with people and hop on a quick call and decide if not everybody's going to be a great connection for you. Some will be duds. Some will be fantastic. You'll hit it off right away. But it's really easy to get connected with people on there and do it in a non-spammy way. So I would listen to podcasts that interest you. Find people who are in your industry or serving your same ideal client and look for commonalities that you like a way in. And sometimes it can be just as simple as, hey, I heard you on this podcast. I think you're brilliant. We should get connected. Who doesn't love to hear that they're brilliant?
Oh, that's just, I hear it daily and I just love it. I'm kidding.
I love that.
No, but
yeah,
yes,
or if somebody or if somebody writes content or does podcasts, tell them you enjoyed their content. You wouldn't believe how often I reach out and tell somebody I really liked their podcast, and they're like, "Well, sometimes I don't know if anybody's listening. Thanks."
It is remarkably nice when and feels great. Most of the times, it's people saying that because they want to sell me something or whatever the case may be. And that still feels good, and then I get to say no. But but it's just like when the ones that do it really, really well are the ones that actually did listen to it.
Are genuine.
And genuine. And they're like, I like, you talk to, I heard that podcast with Cara. I love the gold nugget. Like they really did their work. And it's powerful too, because I read the email, right? But, most of the times it's not something that I'm likely going to buy, but there have been times for sure that I have. I will say that, but then yes, people. I'm saying here, we've been doing this since 2016, and I can count on two hands, okay, of people who reached out and said, hey, Michael, and I just listened to this episode and I really like that. And you know what? Every time I love it, I respond to it, I read it. It is an amazing way to connect with other people. And not many people do it, right?
Yeah.
They probably think about doing it, but they don't, right? Because they think I'm not listening, or they think I'm not,
yeah.
Let's say.
Or it's not going to matter.
It's not going to matter.
Or they don't even notice. I'll share one last tip. My favorite tip for networking is to practice mindfulness meditation. 5 minutes a day. Don't even have to do it every day. But we are so busy all the time. Sometimes we don't notice when we like something even. If you read an article and you think it's brilliant, it's so easy to just move on to the next thing. If you can train your brain to catch the thought, hey, I really liked that, or, oh, you know who else would like this? Then you have ammo. You can come and you can take that article and share it with somebody else who might like it. And that builds reciprocity. And then you're also top of mind and you've connected again. So I think that is a really fantastic secret weapon if you can train your brain to pay attention to the thoughts instead of just moving on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Meditation. I mean, absolutely. That's been in my world lately, is the whole concept of meditation. So it's like definitely top of mind, and just a little bit of mindfulness, a great way. And so non-connected to what you would think about networking is actually mindfulness, and really, when your mind slows down, you're in a different energy, and you can be creative. You can be creative, and also you're going to connect with. You're going to be more present.
Yeah,
you're going to be more present. I just got an email yesterday from a friend who's been doing some deep meditation and presence, getting himself really present, and he went away on vacation and came back to he's in New York City. And he came back to New York and he's like, I'm present, and I want to fill my life with presence, and I'm going to meet people, right? I'm going to be present to the people I'm around. So he gets into this Uber and he's like, he asks this question, he's like totally present. And it's like, there's this driver and I don't know this person. And he asked the person, what do you love about New York, about living in New York? And the person had all these great things, and he told the story, and it's like, wow. And all this good stuff. He's like, what? Wait a second. You drove myself and my wife to a restaurant like a year ago, or a month ago. It was a month ago. And, it was this chance connection. First time, he's been living in New York for probably a decade. First time that he's ever had the same Uber driver. And it was like this sort of gift from the universe to say, yes, I am listening, and you are, and presence is important. Because had he not been present, guess what? He's in the Uber, he's going downtown, and he's out, and it's like, bye-bye. But now he's made this, like he's deep in this relationship with another human being because he was present. And that came from mindfulness.
Yeah. It's a simple thing to do. And just, we don't do it enough.
Super powerful.
Super helpful.
Tell us, let's end with talking about Ravel. Is it something for our listener that would be valuable to them? Talk about it. How can they learn more about it and all the resources that you do offer and have that may be of interest to our listener?
Yeah, I'd love to. So Ravel is a networking community for women service entrepreneurs or women identifying service entrepreneurs. So we're all B2B service entrepreneurs in there. And I network with a lot of other communities too, if anybody's interested in other networking communities that are a better fit maybe for them. But yeah, lots of bookkeepers and financial professionals, marketers. And it's $39 a month. And we have a couple calls a month, and there's a lot. We have a Slack channel. There's a lot of conversation going on. Ravel travel, obviously, we're planning trips and hanging out, and lots of people in California, people all over the place. We've got a couple of Germany residents.
Wow!
So it's pretty cool. And then, of course, the non-ick LinkedIn networking playbook is really helpful if you just want to know how to get connected and network on LinkedIn in a way that feels really good and authentic and not gross.
So cool. Non-ick. I love it. Never heard of it. I love the name and sounds so valuable for our listener. Cara, this has been absolutely a pleasure and so valuable for our listener. I want to thank you on behalf of them, your generosity for coming on the show and sharing so much with us. And you're so generous and so authentic and transparent. It's just been such a pleasure. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this conversation so much. It was great.
We've loved having you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.